I'm based in Lethbridge. Our company is more in Saskatchewan. And what I wanted to show you this morning is stuff that we've been playing around with for a while, and also we got an opportunity last year to set up this sort of like demonstration trial. We only have 1 year on it, but we have 6 sites, a dry land and irrigated at Lethbridge here, another one at Bow Island, and another one at Enchant. And what we have at each one of these sites is 6 different crops. We've got lentils, peas, camelina, barley, oats, and some wheats. And we tried to get as many winter types varieties as we could. We had a pretty short time window. Sometimes we're more successful than others. Most of them come from the Pacific Northwest, like Washington, Idaho, Oregon. A few come out of Europe. Some have been through some of our winters before, so they're a little bit hardier. Some are just learning about Canada and not very happy about it. It's been a great year to try things out with winter crops because it's been very challenging. There's always two issues: getting them established in the fall and then getting them through the winter. Somebody else wants to talk to me. Okay.
I think we all want to talk to you.
Okay. All right.
And maybe just your pocket, is that okay?
Yep, good. Okay, so because of our dry fall and following the drought, we had real establishment issues. Basically, we cheated over here because we were like getting nothing, so we actually gave them some water in the fall just so we could at least look at their survival. Enchant, we weren't able to do that, and it really didn't come through. I would say that for sure you've got to have some flexibility with winter crops in that if the soil is dry, you got to be looking at getting maybe at least ½ an inch for something like a small seeded crop like camelina, and getting an inch for something like a winter pea. Of interest, we had most of our challenges at this site at Lethbridge as far as establishment. We had very good establishment at the other 2 sites. So you'll see some of that as we're walking through it. But then we had our winter. We had December, first part of January. And we had we monitored temperatures at about 3 centimeters where the crown is. This site, we just hit -10 at certain points. It's rough on some of the crops. Other crops will just laugh that that's not a problem. The other locations, colder, maybe as far as crown temperatures go, maybe about 2 degrees at Bow Island, or maybe a bit more, and about 5 degrees colder at Enchant. And if you go to if you go online and you check out the winter cereal survival model, we got those temperatures in that. And what you'll see in that is that, like if you try it with a variety like Endeavour barley, this site barely makes it. Bow Island, not very good. And Enchant didn't make it at all. And basically that's exactly what happened. The good varieties, we almost had 100% survival here. Maybe not good establishment, but we had almost 100% survival. And then Bow Island, some got through, maybe 25%. And Enchant, of those sensitive crops, they didn't make it. Okay, so we also played around with, at this site, we also played around with messing around with dates. So we planted them when we got the seed, end of September. Early September might have been better, but it's okay. We had a good fall, except for no rain. We planted another seeding date November, early November, dormant seeding. Another seeding date in the end of March. And then another seeding date in April. And for winter crops, some of them can do that because they're facultative. They don't need too much cold period. Others need a cold period, otherwise they won't set seed. So that won't work on every crop, but it will work on the ones that we were trying out here. So let's just walk through. There's labels on everything. And we're just going to kind of, from now on, it's just you're walking through, and if you got questions, just direct them at me. I will try to answer things best I can.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Eric.
Sure.
Fertilization of winter wheat. There's a lot of fall seed in winter wheat this past fall that didn't get any moisture, didn't really germinate. Maybe the seed germinated, didn't get out of the ground. Are we going to see heads on these things?
I think we will, because I think they still are going to, like if they, as long as they didn't germinate in May, they probably were already getting enough cold in that early spring season to do the vernalization. Yeah.
You mean it wasn't cold enough last winter?
Well, but if they haven't actually germinated, they're not counting cold. So they got to count. They got to get a certain degree, amount of cold before they say, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to go." It was cold enough, but some things didn't germinate.
Last fall.
Yeah.
Did you use a precision planter, or what type of seeder did you use?
This was not with the precision seeder, and it was a small plot seeder. They had some issues with getting it into the ground. Yeah. So I think some things could work better with the heavier seeders and better
for
precision
depth control and stuff.
Yeah. Good. So this here is the spring variety planted in April. This is what we call our super cool, planted in March, and that super cool is also planted in November. Didn't catch very well in April, but now it looks a lot like the spring ones. And it was also planted in September. For some weird reason, that's the same variety that's in these guard plots. And I like the guard plots a whole lot better than the actual plot here. But good. There's also a yellow cotyledon type winter lentil here, and seems to survive just as well as the red. And yeah, there's the story on the lentils. Okay, let's wander on to the peas.
Eric, do you have any true winter lentil varieties, or are these all spring varieties?
The super cool and the yellow are winter.
Wintery.
They were originally selected out of Morton originally came out of Washington, which basically was, oh, these are surviving out of our spring lentils, let's build them up. We took those and we put them through a couple of Saskatchewan winters.
Okay.
So to get more cold tolerance in them. And they do have more cold tolerance than the original Morton.
Okay.
They're still a little bit on the edge. I wish I have to give them a few more Saskatchewan winters.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But these ones, I mean, we've kept them going for about 12 years now. So,
Yes.
yeah. Looking around for maybe getting somebody to grow up more for some customers. We're still doing it more on a research scale. Okay, the peas. Goldenwood is from Progene out of Washington. And so it's actually for human consumption. A lot of the earlier winter ones were more just for feed. Didn't get the best establishment with that one. They got in a bit late in the dry conditions and all that. Better at some of the other sites. Interesting, in Washington, they like to plant them like, they'll plant them up to 6 inches deep to get them through the winter. I don't know whether that's something, to me, I'm not sure that makes sense for our environment. I'd maybe like to try it to see whether that helps them get through. One thing I do want to mention that makes a huge difference is planting into crop residue. Like we had some here, it wasn't great. really you want a lot of crop residue, hopefully to capture that snow when it comes. We had one sensor here which was under some, within a good spot of residue. It never saw less than -5. The other spots saw -10. We can go to Saskatchewan, good stubble, no problem. Poor stubble, nothing. So, you got to manage. You got to think a bit more about your stubble when you're trying to get winter crops going. Anyways, the goldenwood is from them. This is a spring one planted in March. You can kind of see that the stage is almost exactly the same. They're both flowering. Here's that meadow planted in April. You see it's behind, but at least it's got a better stand. Windham is a feed type. One of the earlier winter peas. And Blaze is another variety that can be used for some human consumption. Both the Blaze and the Goldenwood, I think, they both survive very well. We just needed a bit of a better establishment. Going on, nice plot again of the super cool lentil. The guard plot still looks better. Camelina is a very, very, very small seeded oilseed crop. They use it more for some, currently it's a bit of a, it's used for some pet foods and stuff like that right now. It's a very minor use. It's got good oil. It's just, maybe it'll probably remind you of the earlier days of Napus or something like that. Anyways, it's very winter hardy. We looked around for winter oil seeds like winter canola. They exist, but they don't exist that can tolerate our winters. The camelina survives winters just fine. It's really tough. You just have to get it established because it's super, super small. You got to plant it really shallow. If you don't get the rains, it's just nothing. Anyways, we got a pretty good catch. And here was planted in September. See, it's well potted out. Interesting, here's the November, and there's the March seeding, and here's the spring seeded camelina. So, some of the other sites, we actually found the best catch when we actually planted it in the first part of November. So, there might be possibilities there.
With the irrigation, then the September stuff did come up, even the November stuff. Then last fall, how much growth did you have last fall?
A little bit like that, a little bit less.
Going into winter like that?
A little bit less, but yeah. You kind of wonder always in the fall, did it catch? Is it going? Usually you can't see it very well. And then, but it's amazing sometimes how much it comes through. We had actually a good catch at some of the sites, but that's the trick with that crop. Okay, moving on to the barleys. All right, this is a malt barley spring variety and planted in March. You can kind of see that it wasn't very happy. I think it was more of an establishment than a survival problem. Endeavor is a malting barley. That's the one that we've got the different dates on for the barleys. So this one was planted in November. Not too happy. Here's Lightning, which is out of Oregon. It doesn't look very good in these plots. It survived well, it didn't establish well. In the irrigated sites over there, they actually look much better. So it actually is a good survivor. It's a malting 2-row type. There's a feed barley. Which one is that one? I think it's Austenson. Thunder is another malting barley that comes out of Oregon. And again, it had good survival. It's still only about half the number of plants established that I wanted. Sunstar is a feed type that comes out of the Pacific Northwest. Rosina is one that comes out of Germany. It struggled a bit more, and I think it's kind of maybe fooled. It could put on more yield by hanging around a bit longer. But there you go. Maybe that's some places you want the short season. Here's that endeavor in March, a little bit struggling. Endeavor in April. Now, it does fine, but just looks like any other one. DH141 is another variety out of the Oregon. So those Oregon varieties actually look pretty good as far as survival in this year. And here's the endeavor in September. So
These are true winters that need to vernalize?
some of them are facultative, and I believe this is a facultative one. If I'm wrong, you come here. I'm pretty sure we'll see it. So here's the malt barley planted in regular time, late April. Feed barley in late April. And that's it. Okay, winter oats. They were hard to find. We actually got a bunch of different lines that we've been looking at from a researcher in Poland. Poland is not Alberta, but this is one line that's we managed to get through a couple winters now. It's still on the less hardy side. So we planted that one in September, and you can see it's already well headed out in late April. Here's the spring variety in March, bit of establishment issues. Here's that winter one in March. Looks okay. Here's the spring one in April. Here's that November seeding for the winter oat. Again, bit of an issue. So huge differences in how it's coming along as far as maturity. Okay, last one, we don't have much here with the winter wheats. This here is the spring wheat planted in April. Don't look at this one because this is a fill. That's actually winter durum over there. That's a winter gold that comes out of Germany. Ag Canada people here are actually got some varieties that are getting close to being released. So they'll probably even be more hardy than those ones, but we figured we'd get that one in there, and it actually came through very, very well at all of our sites. So that's a winter durum. There's our spring one in March. The spring one in, oh no, that's the winter wheat in March. Is that right? Yeah. And these are the, yeah, that's right, durums. So there's a quick scan of a whole bunch of different crops, varieties. So yeah, big points. It's establishment, which depends on, moisture mostly. And then it's survival, which depends mostly on making sure they got as much residue cover so they capture whatever snow is for insulation. Maybe a bit of luck with the winter. And variety. You know, some can handle, we had a fall rye there, they're like minus 30 is fine in the soil. But other ones, nope, not so good. We had some faba no survivors. But some of these peas, I think they have good potential up here. Some of these barleys have good potential. Some of the lentil, it's a bit on the edge still, but I think with good management, I think they could come through regularly in Lethbridge, at least.
So the winter peas, are they different from the ones we were trying about 10 years ago? Or different varieties, or?
The Windham and the Spectre are the same. The Goldenwood and the Blaze are relatively, I think they're different from 10 years ago. The Goldenwood I think is only out for a couple of years. A lot of them are being developed, I mean they're developing especially for where they process them into all the different components and stuff like that. So that's where they're coming from. That's where they're developing them for. They have more winter hardiness than.
Because I know 10 years ago they tried them. We actually had them in some farmers' fields, and then all of a sudden in a year, nothing. There's nothing, right? So.
Yeah, and I still think you might have to do something right. Yeah.
You don't want to put 50% of your acres into it.
yeah. Not until we get a few more years under our belt. So, a few more years under our belt, I think, with both good establishment and good, you know, and good survivor because you've managed your crop right. If we can do that consistently, then we know. But until then, we're still doing the failures on small scale.
But the ones that, when you do have your best, that's September seeding? Is that what you're thinking? Or?
I think you get the best advantage if you can get them in by, I'd say, the first part of September, first half. But it seems like you can get away with a lot sometimes. I've planted things like that. There's one barley variety there that we didn't get across the line until middle of October, and well, let's throw it in anyway. It looks fine. It's amazing, you know, how many of them can manage it.
Is this fall or crop before you put these in?
Yes, they had, what did they have in here last year? But yeah, it was following a crop. I think it was a cereal.
So you talked about the insulation value of snow.
Yeah.
So you also talked about last year December. So is there a balance? Like you're saying, does it have to get to a certain temperature?
Yeah, once the soil temperature hits about, well, for most crops, winter crops, you know, the more sensitive ones can't handle minus 10, and then they'll start getting, every time they hit a minus 10, they go, ugh, and then and usually after that it just spirals down, and before you know it, they're not looking good at all. Yeah, so it's depth, of course, of seeding has a bit of an influence. It's a bit the residue on top, but what happened in our December, January period is that usually when that cold front came in, we usually got a little bit of snow with it. And
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well, I think we're good. Yeah, so we usually got a bit of snow. So if we caught that snow, then they could get through that that week of super cold.
But prolonged minus 30 is definitely hard on them then?
Well, not if they have a good snow cover. We can grow them in Saskatoon if you got the snow. Yeah.
There they get snow.
There they get snow. That's our problem is that, you know, we'll get a Chinook and the snow is gone. So it's more a matter of catching the snow just as the cold is coming in.
So when you get a situation where you get snow and then you get a Chinook and you end up with an ice buildup, is that detrimental to the crops?
It could be. It can be for sure. We usually don't get that extreme in the ice buildup. I know, you know, growing up, that's the thing we worried about with the alfalfa and stuff like that. Okay. But I think we're mostly, the soils are dry enough, we don't really hit that issue.
So there is like hundreds of thousands of varieties now in the market. So on the what basis you are selecting, okay, you want to test out those varieties specific. So these are like 5-6 varieties here. So
yeah, there are not thousands of varieties of winter crops of these types that have also been adapted for at least close to this latitude. So you got to get the latitude right because of day length and all those sort of things. So yeah, so by the time you put all those criteria down, there's not a whole lot yet. There's not a lot to work with, and we don't have we don't have a winter pulse, you know, program up here or anything. We just winter wheats, some winter durums.
So all the varieties that you picked were supposedly or primarily winter varieties?
Yes.
Is the tall one the winter durum that you talked about?
Yeah. It comes out of Germany, I believe.
Quite remarkable, actually.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got to shift over.
Okay.
To the next station.
Thanks, guys.